think sometimes that's psychology.
I expect the sacrifice of the pastor as one of the many was a God experience. I just wanted to find God, simply feeling like you're inspired. It is all so.
Tell us about the solution.
As one of
People continue to put 5 years in place. Not how to work. Hey, I don't have the skills for this particular problem to solve this particular problem.
none of us talked about the bread salad.
Hello and welcome to Heart of the Matter. My name is Adeolu Adefrasin and I've got with me Omotayo. Today we'll be talking about ShopTalk. For those of you who don't know, I created a television talk show for men called ShopTalk, and that's what we'll be talking about. Omotayo here is my co-producer.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
So yeah.
So why did you decide to do ShopTalk?
Why ShopTalk? ShopTalk is weird for me. I think as a show, it's not something that I would ordinarily have thought to do.
Right.
But in terms of what made me do it, in February, we at church at Guiding Light Assembly, we had a program called Ignite the Manifestation.
Remember that?
Yes, and we had the Lindsays came to speak, and I remember the fact that on both days there were like really few men, and God kind of laid it on my heart that like men are meant to be leaders,
Right.
called to be leaders. Bible says so, and leaders in relationship, leaders in different aspects, even leaders in your relationship with God.
Right.
But if there's so few men coming to church and seeking that relationship in the first place, how can men lead?
Right.
And that's what first birthed the idea of creating a show that gets men to open up and talk about things in different spheres,
Right.
but feed in the God factor. Because if you can't get them to come to you, then we'll go to them and try and feed out that message. And then, you know, Shop Talk kind of, when God gave me the idea of the barber shop, that's when I knew that this was not my idea. So yeah, that's what kind of birthed the whole idea of Shop Talk.
Okay. But then why? So you said God gave you the idea of a barber shop.
Yeah.
Why was that a sign that you? How did that let you know that wasn't you?
Because it just felt so right and like a good
Right.
idea, and I was like, I know. Myself, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Right.
But the whole idea of men coming together in a barbershop and actually talking about things,
Yeah.
and also the idea that, you know, a lot of talk shows, you get things that feel very formalized, that stops
Yeah.
people from being honest or natural. I thought that setting would give something that let people be able to actually be free to talk, be able to not have this whole element of we have cards that we're looking back to or
Right.
asking specific questions. So that whole casual nature of it is what I think lent to the idea of getting honest truths out of people.
Yeah, it was quite authentic as well. Except that we then started getting comments where people were like, "Is anyone really actually cutting their hair?"
I mean, people did cut their hair.
Like almost everyone.
Everyone
actually
cut their hair. The thing was just, you know, obviously Ephesians, you have to think about things you have to think of things from a production set of mind as
Yeah,
well. So you have to
true.
look at the fact that if someone finishes cutting their hair too soon, and you have to change the person cutting their hair,
Right.
it interrupt the conversation.
Yeah.
And the focus of this thing is the conversation.
conversation.
So if someone is cutting their hair for 1 hour, then they're cutting their hair for 1 hour.
Then again, it was mostly about like 20, 30 minutes. It wasn't that bad, but there was hair.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, and you know, we'll take into advice what people said and see what we can do about that come season 2.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick look at one of the episodes so we can
Okay.
talk about that.
What episode is this?
It's going to be, you know, start at the beginning. It's a very good place to start.
Of course.
So we're going to look at the episode called Picking Your Partner with Links and Stan and Zay.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites.
Guys are no more in their 20s, so it's this
We have
reality.
done best man like 15 times.
You know what I'm
Next one
saying?
is my turn. Plus, yeah.
So with the physicals like God created, forget. Travel around, you have to tear. At the end of the day, you need to look beyond the physical realm of
Okay,
what you
so
see
what
in a
is that?
woman. So you have to look for the substance. You know what I'm saying? It's like buying second-hand car that they fixed up, bodywork, everything, mad rims, mad paints. But the inside AC, you know, they work. Have you realized that?
You know, I was having a conversation about that recently. That people always say that.
So
I'm
do you
like,
think those guys, they cheat?
No, here's the thing. Spec is a mental thing. Do you get what I'm
Kind
saying?
of things you like.
Yes,
you,
it's a
kind
mental
of things
thing.
you think you like.
But most times, you wouldn't find the
Then it doesn't
contents
come down so much, right?
of what you need.
this episode was It was the first one, and literally we filmed in what was originally going to be chronological order. And so this was the very first episode that we filmed, and it was interesting. I think there's like a theme that went through that I don't think I planned originally.
Right, which was
a lot of this, because my idea was obviously about the whole idea of leadership.
Yeah.
But relationships came
over and over again.
Even in the episodes, they had nothing to do with relationships. They kind of fed there.
Yeah.
Because I think obviously it's one of those things that we feel like men don't talk about.
Yeah.
So the idea of getting people that are open, getting people that are able to dissect, that people wouldn't expect to normally have these kind of conversations.
Right.
Because that's the whole idea of the show, really, for men to open up and for women to be able to hear what men really think about issues that they can't normally get them to talk about.
Yeah.
And one of the things I always think about, because this is my first time producing.
What was that like?
Like the problems that you come up with producing. I mean, it's everywhere. You first off, even to do with the idea of the barbershop. So you have an idea of a barbershop, and now you think, okay, I want to shoot on an actual location. Go looking for locations. You have problems finding locations, or the cost of a location.
Yep.
So the decision in itself to build a barbershop set.
Yeah.
You start worrying about authenticity of the barbershop.
Yeah, but I think that was actually one of the things that made it the most
It actually
authentic,
really helped it.
because it looked exactly like a barbershop. Like you couldn't tell anyone that you didn't
Yeah, a
actually
lot
go
of people
out
were like,
somewhere.
if my barbershop looked like this, like people were really excited about the barbershop.
Yeah.
And I remember myself not being sure what it was going to look like, because even when you
Yeah.
first see it built, until you see it back
Actually
from
set
the lens of
up.
a camera and
Yeah.
set up, then you understand, So the problems, and negotiating problems with all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, originally you have this idea and you want to create it, but you're looking for money, production and money. But I think that's the important thing about knowing that God came up with this idea, right? Because it was about finding his people that believe in the vision of you as well as you do, as much as you do. And then that helped me, because where you can't come up with the money, originally people that believe in it are willing to run with it.
Yeah.
And that feeds into the way the show is looks altogether, because everybody came with it with a passion.
Yeah.
Not just.
True.
The next thing is always getting guests. And that's why I said ShopTalk's not a show that I originally would have done myself. Because even for me, like naturally, a lot of the relationships I have, a lot of the people I've met, it's easier for a guy to make friends with females. So like, for me, it was like, who do I know? Where can I get people from? Do I know that these people will be able to have this authentic kind of conversations and will be real about it? Because you worry about, when you're looking for guests, you start thinking, is this person going to be trying to sell their market?
Right.
So giving all the right answers and making sure you're getting people that are actually really genuine and have. Another weird thing about it is my whole idea coming into the show was that we never advertise the faith aspects. We talk about everything, but we'd never try and guide it there.
Yeah. But it
And
ended
even
up
where I
coming
tried to,
out.
it always went there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I wasn't trying to force the situation, but it happened that the situation, it kind of naturally went that way, which lets me know how much
God was kind of.
God is involved in everything that
So
we were
this
doing.
episode that we were looking at, Picking a Partner, it had Stan and it had
Insane,
Links. Now, so we know, I mean, Links is kind of like, we're trying to farms Links into the Ignite or Guide Ignite Assembly community. So I personally know how you had met him before.
Yeah.
But how did you end up with Stan on the show?
Stan was such an interesting man. God do things in a real crazy way. Because like I said, when I say problems getting hold of some of the guests, this was like one of the biggest issues. I had names I wanted for the first episode. I was really sure. I had sorted out Links a long time ago, because when I first spoke to him after the manifestation, when Nigeria first came to me, he was always up for it.
Right.
With Stan, I remember I was crazily thinking about it. Who do I get? What am I going to do? The first episode, it was literally, I didn't have him 2 days before we shot.
Right.
I went to a premiere for something and he was there, and I was like, and we started talking. And because I started to feel like there was stuff there. He wasn't like the person I was even thinking about before I got there. But I got this impression to ask him, and he was very interested in the idea. And like, next thing you know, 2 days later, we're having this conversation. And he lent so much to the conversation, because we're looking at things from different aspects. And I think that was really important, that everybody had everyone had like one heart in terms of the way the conversation was, but they all had different perspectives on that.
Yeah, I like the fact that he had different questions as well. Like he was a bit more.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a bit surprising as well because he seemed to be like this romantic-y guy. Like he always kept on saying things like, "I want a woman who would make me laugh," and I was like, "Do guys think this way?" And a lot of women don't think that guys think this way, which is why this show, I think it really gave the women a bird's eye view of like, do guys really sit together and talk like this?
I think it's really interesting because, like I said, people don't think that. And guys also don't naturally open themselves up to say that. So the fact that these people were like, even though I know we have these thoughts, we don't openly even talk amongst ourselves about these kind of like natural things to look for. So it was very interesting. We're going to go and have a look at another episode soon, but right before that, we'll take a quick break. Join us back here. We'll keep on talking about Shop Talk here with Omotayo and myself. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to Heart of the Matter. I'm Adilo Adefrasin and I'm here with Omotayo and we're talking about Shop Talk.
Yep.
So just before the break, we took a look at one of the episodes. We talked a bit about getting the guests and all that kind of things. One thing that I was always interesting is when I came up with, when we had the episodes and ideas, there was always things I knew that I wanted to cover.
Yeah.
But conversations didn't always go that way.
Yeah, you were saying off camera that some of them really surprised you.
Yeah.
Can you talk about one of those?
The one that surprised me the most, and we're still here dealing, was male insecurities episode.
Right.
That episode, I feel like I'd gone people that I know are quite open and all that kind of stuff personally. So I was like, okay, these people will come, they'll open up so much about themselves and we'll delve into the whole idea of male insecurity. And when we got to the actual episode, all the things I planned to cover didn't happen. It was like God just completely reversed it. Instead of me talking to the people and getting them to open up, they were like switching it back on me.
Right.
And one thing that taught me a lot was that God was like, this isn't, as much as you feel like I'm using you to put you in a certain position for leadership and all that kind of stuff, I'm using this to teach you, not necessarily just for you to teach. So it let me know that there's a lot of things that you're here to learn, which made me more attentive in the episodes.
Right, so it's like you were actually getting something, not just like hosting the show. Okay, can we see like a clip?
Yeah, let's have a look at the male security, insecurity, and male security. All right, guys, let's have a quick look at the male insecurity episode clip. For me, I don't think that I noticed that was like a thought track. So that inferiority that I thought, I didn't notice it was inferiority complex. Exactly. So like what it was that, okay, so now it comes to things like, even when we look at relationships, you now start worrying about things like money. Do I have the money to be able to do this? But really the money was a sense of, I feel like would that money give me the ability to feel like I'm therefore worthy? But you didn't actually realize that I was looking for worthiness. I just thought I was looking for money.
Money has a certain way it makes everybody feel. I mean, but when you now understand that your like your roots and your source of joy and happiness and worth isn't
And not those things.
Not those things, and it's tough. Me that I'm talking here, hey, I'm needing cash to maintain this, awesomeness. But when you realize that,
that in itself was also something that's very prominent that we talked about. The whole idea of men's ability to say I love you and acknowledge love, especially to like other guys, as opposed to like, I'm like, I mean, I still don't know. I'm still here battling. I'm still like, is it necessary?
To be honest though, because I grew up with men, I don't even know if it's just a male thing, because I was like, because in my family, my brothers, I have 4 brothers and my dad, so it's like nobody who's saying I love you to anybody. I mean, it's like, so I understand. I've seen it firsthand how men struggle to expose insecurities, but I've also found that in some strange way, men tend to open up in relationships with women, which is which then I guess maybe why everything came back to relationships, because men are able to open up in relationships, but not just in the rest of life.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot about the importance and necessity, I guess, of relationships and the way God has created it, is that women are meant to nurture that kind of ability and comfort in a guy. And a lot of guys, so we worry about how men, it's weird, I was listening to something, it's gonna completely just throw you guys off the scent. Michelle Obama was talking about the way the men are brought up nowadays in terms of the whole idea. She feels like men are loved and women are trained.
Right.
So we love them into a way, a sense of entitlement that makes it hard for them to deal with certain emotions because they're expected to have this sort of life, to do these sort of things, and they're not really taught about the emotional side of things.
Right, of course.
So I think it's all kind of stuff that we covered in that episode, and it dug deep. So I make you question about things that will happen when you're younger. Be like, what is it? Because one of the big things that we covered was the fact that there's a lot of deeper causes behind a lot of the issues that men deal with and mask, which was a theme throughout the entire season, I believe, because it's the whole idea that in everything that we seem to see, a lot of stereotypes are created about why men like this, why men like that. There's an insecurity that's fed into that necessarily by culture, by family, and all those kind of things that need to be dealt with. So that episode was quite a deep one for me. I want to take a look at one of the other episodes that kind of delved into this whole idea of the way we think, called the Body, Mind, Spirit episode, which to me was like really deep.
For instance, if a person says, I cannot marry a woman who is, in his own definition, a 9/10 or a 10/10, so he boycotts certain things that are more, important. Do you have spiritual alignment? Are you entering into spiritual partnership?
Well, if you have spiritual alignment, but you don't have that physical attraction, you will waver.
So, this episode was deep.
Yeah.
I want to get some of your insights from, because you were like a co-producer, you were outside, you were watching what the conversations kind of felt like for you.
I think for me, because I knew some of these people, so I kind of expected some of the wisdom that came, but I found myself literally standing there like, oh, like, do men really feel this way?
Yeah.
This episode, for instance, I mean, Martin is always like spitting
Heavy.
truth and heavy, but I like the fact that Poe was also learning, and you could see that he didn't come like, oh, I know how it is, or I know how men are. He was like, oh, actually, I'm taking that on. And then he was asking questions right back. And I don't think I've ever seen a situation where men together in a room are actually, it's almost like they're submitting to each other, asking each other for help. I've never seen that kind of thing.
That's the something that actually just came to me, that whole idea that, yes, what this actually managed to do is create like an aspect where people were willing to be vulnerable with one another.
And they didn't even, I don't think the guests realized they were being vulnerable. I think there was just this atmosphere of like, oh, can you tell me more about that? And I was like, oh.
And so that's a big thing. It's weird because obviously you don't necessarily expect, you don't necessarily know.
Because they didn't know each other beforehand.
Exactly.
Like Martin and Poe, a lot of the people you paired together hadn't met before or weren't close before, and they opened up.
And it's interesting because we've kind of like seen the natural order of things in that I even see it since the show's all come out, you see the comments. Like, it's only women that seem to be commenting, men aren't commenting. So you can see that, like, it's not natural for men to be that vulnerable, vulnerable as they were in the show.
Right, yeah. I think I was noticing that in the comments as well. So there was a time when a guy said, I'm sure it's only women who watch this show. And I found it interesting because there's a lot of talk in media in general, where people are saying, oh, people are only doing things for women, there's WIMBIZ, there's women empowerment, that we're the things for the men, and the men are always saying that we're the things for the men. And I found it really interesting that a man then came and did something for the men, and the women are commenting, and the men are seeming to be upset that the women are commenting. It's like, I know it's not natural because it's been a habit that I feel like men have learned and it's been reinforced over generations, but is there any way, do you think it's possible for us to break that, where men, even if all the comments is nice one, like is there a way for men to...
I think it comes down to this level of we're trying to be more interactive, because we need to create a thing where the conversation is for men. So one thing that we're trying to do is we do Instagram live versions of ShopTalk as well. Yes, naturally, women are the ones that will watch it more often than not.
Or at least asking questions.
And asking questions. Yeah. So, but the next level to that, I think, is creating a live version where you get to see men invite men to the space.
Right.
So that as well as having men that are talking about these things, you're having men that get to ask questions about these things. So that we create more of an interaction with the audience.
Right.
So that we invite men to actually speak and not just necessarily listen.
Right.
Because one of the things that I think when it comes down to men, we have a natural sense of like ego. So we want to voice our opinions. But the question is, if we feel like we're just being told something, you're not going to really comment that I just agree.
Right.
Right?
I see.
You want to give them a platform to say, what do you think?
Right. But then will they step up? Because I know that for women, we are hungry for every kind of information we get. We're like, okay, women have spent ages saying this is how to be and this is what we understand. And so, but then it's always fascinating for us to see men talk and be like, is that what they're really thinking? But then for men, as much as I know that men love to watch, like they learn better from each other, is there a way that you can kind of ensure that people then participate? Is there a possibility to kind of like bring in some audience participation in beyond what you've said about the events? Like, how do you make sure men will actually come and the men will actually ask these questions?
These are all things where it's all about, I think a lot of it is about how you dress it. Okay. Because a lot of the times when it comes to men, if you approach things from that emotional point of view, you're kind of going to alienate them. Right. So we need to find a way to invite men into a situation where the conversation feels as masculine as possible. I remember when the Lindsays were around, they came on this show and were interviewed by my dad, and they said that one of the issues that Cornelius said he realized the reason that men aren't really coming to church, the reason men are struggling with faith is that we only advertise like, Jesus as the lamb. We only advertise the emotional aspects of church. Men want to see but God is a range of things. He's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. There's also the whole aspect of war, the whole aspects of aggressive, this aggressive side, so we need to push the masculine side out so the men feel welcome. But if you baby everything up, you make everything seem more feminine, men are more likely to lean back. And it's actually more about ego than the fact that they actually have an emotional side. It's there, but they want to hide it as much as possible. Right.
So it's like the thing is that men want to look like the leader. So we need to kind of find a way to talk about, like Jesus being a leader and Jesus being bold and Jesus being like the authority that comes with that, so that men can see that he can have the authority as well and then draw them in.
Exactly.
Okay, makes sense.
So let's have a quick look at another episode that I think really, just literally bouncing off of what you said as well, is the idea, for me, one was going to be a key topic for this season, which was leadership and relationships. Because this whole idea of leadership, a lot of misconceptions.
It's, for me, I'm of the opinion that both the man and the woman both lead. And there's a long, I have so many theories, et cetera, but, I feel like if I could even, just 1 second, let me just do a round of applause for all the women in our society. Hey! For real, I give them so much credit. Look, you know why? Because we don't give them that much credit for leading. They do. Yeah. Let me give you an example. For example, if I'm in a relationship and I'm an alcoholic, right? A woman is potentially going to be the one who's going to lead me out of alcoholism. Okay, why do I spray perfume? I don't spray perfume for myself. I spray it so that when I go out, one baby will now be like, this guy, you're smelling up. So anyways, most things that we do,
blushing in that
most things that I'm doing it for them. For them, yeah. And they're the ones who are, for me, they lead a lot of what is going on, even if they lead silently. Like, I feel like I see it in our society. We don't really appreciate it, but they do it. Think about motherhood, right? Motherhood is one of the most selfless roles of all time. It is the most selfless role. A mother says to herself, well, by nature, she gives birth to a child, and she's inextricably linked to this child. She brings up the child, she loves the child.
There we go. Okay, what's up? Right, this whole idea for me, leadership and relationships is a huge one, because I think there were a lot of misconceptions that needed to be talked about in terms of what is leadership actually, what does it look like, what, especially in African culture,
Right.
There's a lot of talk in leadership being an aspect of power.
Right.
One thing that we kind of covered was, you're talking about relationships, but let's look at the reason why this word leadership in itself, it sees into different areas. And I look at this even in terms of, let's look at presidencies. You vote for a president, but then that same person that you voted a leader, though they're meant to therefore serve, becomes a authority that has more power than service.
Right. As we were talking in the course of this conversation, I realized that relationships are emotional things, and leadership seems to be a very logical thing. And so obviously men want to be leaders, but I realized that relationships is kind of a strange space for men, because in relationships you have to lead emotionally as well as logically. And so even though it seems like men are naturally, prone to being emotional, I realized that men actually have a greater responsibility, because women only need to master emotions to a large degree. Like, we can be logical in our own way, but when it comes to the context of a relationship, we're not the ones called to call the shots and to lead. So we only have to be emotional in relationships, whereas men have to be not only logical but emotional as well. And it just clicked to me that that's actually double the responsibility, and like, it makes sense for men to go out of their way to actually understand emotions, because you cannot lead emotions logically, and you cannot, do you know what I mean? Like, you guys actually have to figure both
actually
out.
understand, and you have to be able to logically understand emotions.
Yeah, it's a huge responsibility.
So we talked about a lot, and one of the things from this whole idea what women have to do, I thought was really interesting after this whole conversations, because the whole idea for me is to create some sort of dynamic of conversation where you get men opening up to see what women thought about things that the men said. So we had on the season finale, we had a female episode, and we'll just have a look at a clip really quickly.
I'm not talking about physical, I'm talking about like the kind of personalities they have. I agree with her. The kind of guys I keep attracting, they're not just good for me. If you're watching it, that's your business. But I'm just saying, that's their business. Do you understand? So really, really and truly, I've actually come to realize that probably just not within my power anymore. Because I just don't get it.
I don't think that I can relate, because I don't know that I have a spec. I've dated all kinds of people: short, slim, tall, fat.
What about personality though?
Personality, maybe, yes.
That's a spec.
But in terms of
But
physical,
I do think we're looking physical, because the thing is, what we're talking about is that you can't find the personality. Sometimes you might not find the personality traits that you need within the physical.
Okay, so
You
you were
can.
something physical.
I feel like most guys are very pretentious. They'll say, oh, you're coming acting like you're a saint. Oh, I want a girl to be saint. Are you a saint? You that are coming to say, I want her to be a saint. You want her to be perfect. Are you perfect?
I'm very close to many guys. And the ones that are married are not married to their specs. And this is because I know their specs. And they're like, who's spec hip?
So with this episode, it was different. You had to find a way to like make a barbershop a feminine space.
Right.
So we got, nail salon in. And that was interesting, but it was very interesting to hear what the woman had to say about stuff. And what was great actually for me was, I think women would expect a lot of the times to disagree with what they think the men think.
Right, yes,
But they actually didn't.
They actually didn't.
There was so you realize when you get men in a position where they're actually opening up and being honest about issues, there's actually a lot of aligned thinking that people don't usually expect to see.
Yeah, that's so true, because women always think that, men always say you can't understand women, and women always say you can't understand men. But because men finally got to a place where they were vulnerable, they were saying what they really felt, and all the women agreed. It's so interesting, because it's almost like it makes us realize that in real life, we're not actually talking to our real selves. Like, we're showing ourselves kind of like
there's so much of a facade.
Yes, and so this is really interesting, because I was just like, everybody agrees with everyone. But I also like the interesting twist in this episode where, as much as there was a nail salon in there and all the ladies gisting, you then had Delphine come, and then she cut your hair. And even the way she did it, she didn't try to be masculine about it. She was like, what was this thing? But she still did it. So it's that, it kind of takes that whole what a man can do thing, but instead of trying to do it better, she just does it in her own way. And it's like, there's no competition. And I like the fact that this is a show that addresses male and female relationships as well as other things, without the element of competition. Yeah, it's really interesting.
You can tell that she's a good producer. Look at the analytics that she found, guys. One of the last things I want to talk about, just even on the idea of this, because people start asking about doing things for women, and should I do like a nail salon? I'm like, I don't know how to do that.
Yes, the idea with ShopTalk is that it's for men.
It's for men.
There's so many things out there for women. I don't think women really need another place where we come together to gist about men. We're doing it all the time. YouTube it, you find it. But I find that this was really rare because apart from just having men together in one space, you weren't just talking about sex in a worldly way or in a lewd way. You weren't making jokes. You weren't putting on more of that facade. We were actually talking about real life issues, the way it affects you guys from different perspectives. So I think, no, never, don't let them ever convince you to do a woman show. One, you're a guy, you can't do a woman show, but also we need more and more of this because men need to realize that you can be real and it's okay.
Awesome. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode looking at ShopTalk. Tune in. The information will be on the bottom of the screen, but it is youtube.com/ShopTalkNG. And yeah, go watch it, enjoy it, be blessed, be moved, be inspired. And men, go and watch it. Okay, it's for you. Thank you very much and God bless.